Chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Sherman.
Mr. Chairman, I want to commend you on your monetary easing policy. I know not all of my colleagues agree, but the economy is a patient in critical condition, and the traditional medicines are not available. Fiscal policy is political. I don't think you can lower short-term interest rates. So the fact is, you have come up with a new and inventive medicine at a time when the easy thing to do for you would have been to walk away from the patient and say, everything that can be done has been done, at least by the Fed. So you've shown courage, you've shown innovation, and I hope this new experimental medicine of yours works. Colleague just asked about municipal bonds. I'd like to focus just on state borrowing. The rule is states can't go bankrupt. People invest in state bonds with that as the rule, the assumption, and there's some politicians talking about allowing states to go bankrupt, and these politicians don't even want the bondholders to lose money. It's just they hate the public employee unions so much they've lost sight of the reason we don't let states go bankrupt, which is to encourage people to lend money to states. What effect would it have if there was real serious discussion and we were close to passing a bill allowing states to go bankrupt? What effect would it have if a state actually went bankrupt on the ability of all 50 states to borrow at the present time and in coming years?
Well, that's really hard to judge. I think, even though states can't go bankrupt, they can default, and that has happened 160 years ago. So municipal bondholders do try to assess the risk that there will be a default. The bankruptcy idea is a very complex one because of states' rights issues. You have to raise the question, could a bankruptcy judge tell a state to raise taxes, for example? So I think there's some very thorny legal questions at the very beginning of that debate. Again, I'm sorry, I can't really judge what impact the creation of a bankruptcy code would have on those risks. I think the bondholders look fundamentally at the condition of the states, and also rules like what is the precedence of interest payments and those sorts of things.
I'd point out that the state treasurers around this country do not want us to give them the states the ability to go bankrupt. Right now, Fannie and Freddie are paying a 10% dividend. The TARP banks paid a 5% dividend or annual payment. I'm not at all sure that on a net basis you're going to really collect anything from Fannie and Freddie. Why should we have a 10% payment that we're receiving from Fannie and Freddie?
Well, as with the capital injection programs and the like, it was set up to be paid back via giving the government preferred stock and by having a dividend. But of course, as you know, Fannie and Freddie have been still requiring injections of money, and they have not made any significant progress in paying it back.
As to my colleagues saying that all of our constituents believe there's much higher inflation, they all do. That's because if you go to the market and lettuce is $1.59 a head, you notice that. If onions are down to 39 cents a pound, nobody winces. They just buy a few more onions. So people will always think prices are going up. Your predecessor testified before Congress that, in fact, the CPI overstates the inflation rate by 3/4 of a point, perhaps a point, or even more. Do you think that is a correct analysis, or does the CPI best reflect inflation given quality improvements in a lot of our products?
You're correct that the professional economists who have, including the ones at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, who have looked at price measurement, do conclude that the CPI probably does overstate actual inflation, although they have made progress in addressing some of the issues that were identified a decade ago. That being said, we understand the visibility of gas prices and food prices and We want to be sure that people's expectations aren't adversely affected. I think it's important to note that, according, for example, to the Michigan Survey of Consumers, that long-term inflation expectations have been basically flat. They haven't moved, notwithstanding ups and downs in gas prices, for example.
Gas prices are there, but flat-screen TVs are in the other direction, and I yield back.
Chair now recognizes